All right. Take 356 of how to teach theme using a Chrome. Guys, this is nothing like talking to you in class, and it's really starting to annoy me because I want to have you in class. I miss contact with you. Okay, so our lesson today is not how Miss Barbara misses you, although that could be a part of a theme we're trying to learn here. It's about theme, and this is something that we talked about at the beginning of the year, but the language arts teachers on our hall feel, Miss Hughes and I feel that it's just really important. Miss Hughes, Miss Stanley, Miss Paris, Miss Mansour, all of us working together, Miss Lumpkin, feel that it's really important that we understand that you, from pronoun, you understand theme moving forward into 7th grade, okay? So we borrowed this Powtoon. I borrowed this Powtoon to teach theme. And we've got Joe, meet Joe, and we have Sally, okay? So Joe's like, yeah, aren't they the same thing? And Sally's like, well, no, they're similar, kind of like the word similar you use in math, but they're not congruent. They don't mean the same thing. They're not the same shape, right? So she looks at Joe and she's like, Joe, hey, the theme is the big idea of the story. It's kind of like the moral, but when you use the word moral, that's more like Aesop. We're thinking fables there. So let's use the proper terminology. Let's use the word theme, okay? And basically it's what the author's trying to tell us or teach us. And so then the topic basically is nothing more than a subject or an idea within the story. Well, one reason why I chose this Powtoon is because it has visual aids, and you guys know how I am about drawing visual aids. So she uses the light bulb to symbolize theme. She uses the umbrella to symbolize subject or topic, whatever word you want to use. And so Bob's over here, not really sure. That really doesn't help me. I still don't understand the difference. I'm still clueless. Not that any of my students would ever be that way, right? You would get it by now. And he's like, and what in the world is the deal with the light bulb and umbrella? Not that I've ever heard any of my students ask, Miss Barbara, why are you drawing that? Why are you drawing that? Okay, so we'll go back to the lesson of assumption, right? And she says, because theme is the big idea, we're going to represent it with a light bulb, because when you guys get ideas in Barberland, there's a light bulb that goes off, right? It's bright in our room all the time. But an umbrella, she's going to use an umbrella to represent the topic because it's very generalized. It's very broad. And you know, when you open up an umbrella, it's broad, right? Less specific. So let's look at some examples, because that's what we do in class, right? You have examples of love and friendship and hope and courage. Wow, those are all things we need right now with this quarantine going on. We need someone to love us. We need the friendship, the communication. I mean, if anything, thank goodness for social media now, because without social media, there would be no communication going on between a lot of us. We need the hope to get over this quarantine, that it needs to just go away. And then we need the courage to be able to go out in public when all this is over with. Some of us are probably still going to be scared. So let's look at some examples of theme. You got the age-old classic, never judge a book by its cover. The tortoise and the hare, slow and steady wins the race, right? You know, Miss Barbara's always repeated that one in class all the time because some of you are like speed demons. There's no place like home. Dorothy probably could give you some advice like that. And then the fact that the only thing stronger than fear is hope. And that is something, hopefully, that's a lesson when we're done. Well, we're never probably ever going to be done. But when we're out of this whole bottomless pit right now of despair with the quarantine, we're all a lot of us are living in fear. But we want to make sure that we see the light at the end of the tunnel, that there is hope, and that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, and we will survive all of this and come through this and be better for it. So these are just some examples of theme, right? And he's like, well, how do they relate? And she's like me. Let's see. So when looking at any kind of literature or anything that you can read, you make topics. So just like when we read a book in class or we read a paragraph and Miss Barber says, okay, what's the first thing you think of after hearing this? And she's going to say, what's the author trying to teach us? And basically that's what's the first thing you think of? And she tells them to, instead of getting those random thoughts, like think hard, like, is it about home? Is like Maniac McGee, there was homelessness, there was illiteracy in that topic, in that book, sorry. The topic of racism and bullying, tons of big ideas that come out of the book Maniac McGee. And he's like, well, yeah, it's about this and this and this and this. And she's like, yeah, but can't you think a little bit more into it? Let's expand our thinking. And of course, he can be a little bit like you guys, and he's not sure if he can expand his thinking. So she's like, okay, let's try it. Think of your favorite book. So he's thinking, and he comes up that his favorite book would be The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I like The Hunger Games, not one of my favorites, but I have read it, and I know a little bit about it. So then he starts making, Joe starts making a list of topics and subjects that's intertwined throughout the story of The Hunger Games. Love, loyalty, hypocrisy, social inequality, power, hope, sacrifice, fear, survival, appearances. Wow, it kind of sounds like my everyday life right now. So she tells him to focus on 2. And the 2 that he circled were fear and power, okay? And so fear and power are the topics that they're going to focus on. Because Joe says, fear and power, when you read this story, this novel, they show up all throughout the Hunger Games. And if you read it, and I encourage you to do so, you'll notice that they are closely related. And so she's like, great. So now we need to ask, what's the author really trying to teach us about fear and power? And of course, he's like, well, President Snow, who is the president within this particular novel, tries to use fear to control the people of Panem. But he says, I don't think that's the theme because there's no lesson learned there. And she's like, oh my gosh, you are exactly right. She's like, yay, you're right on track. Theme has nothing to do with the characters. It has nothing to do with the plot of the story when it doesn't involve those. It's what we learn from those things. So he writes the statement, President Snow uses fear to control the people of Panem. And so she looks at Joe and says, well, so the lesson here is that fear is a way to control people, basically. So let's cross out the words that come from the book. We want to cross out the characters and the settings, right? And so now we're left with uses fear to control the people. And now we need to basically rearrange this into a sentence that applies to our everyday life. Have you ever read a book or been in a situation where you have seen fear used to control anyone? And think. I usually read Animal Farm with a couple of my classes every year. This is the first year that sadly we're not going to get to it. And it bothers me dearly, but hopefully you will pick up the book Animal Farm and read it on your own time. And you will be able to see another shining example of when fear is used to control individuals. And so he comes up with the theme, fear can be used as a control tactic. Fear can be used as a tactic to control people. He gets it. But then he's like, I don't agree with that. He said, I get it, but I don't agree with it. Well, do you have to agree with the lessons that you learn in a novel? No, you don't. You don't have to agree with those. And Sally's like, it's okay. It's just the author. You have to understand that what the message is of the story. You don't have to agree with it. You just have to understand it. And so this is just a review. She's sharing with you that topic is nothing more than the subject. It's less specific. It's the umbrella. It's the umbrella. It is a broad subject, less specific. Theme is the big idea. We have to expand our thinking. And once you expand that thinking and you take your subjects or your topics, you are then able to pull the theme from the story. And voila. It's a little less complicated than a mathematical equation. Ooh, don't say math. So now what you will get to do is basically show me what you know. And Miss Barber is going to post Pearson Realize, because we've been using the book, right? She's going to post an activity for you to do, and it will be online. So that way it'll be easier for me to kind of monitor your progress. Remember, it is not a grade. However, I need you to do it so that I can just kind of progress monitor you and just see how you're doing. That's it. That's all I want to do. And plus, I just like communicating with you guys. So don't leave me hanging out here. But you'll see that pop up on your Google Classroom in just a moment, okay? So just as a review, and I'm going to share this slide with you again on your Google Classroom. Theme, it's the central message. It's what the author wants us to learn, wants us to know. It's an idea about life, and it's usually not stated. It must be inferred. If you have any questions, hit me up on Google Classroom, Remind, text, email. Yeah, email is the popular one you're using. But I'm here. All right, I'm signing out. Love you guys. Bye.